have a topic I'd like to get into today that we didn't, that's not on the thing.
Okay, off topic.
Hmm.
Get the 4x4 out, boys.
This thing that came up for me recently that I realized that both of us deal with all the time. We never address it directly, but every person will experience, whether or not they know that they're experiencing it, which is the idea that you need to wait for permission.
Waiting for permission. Let's put that into context.
Well, what I'm talking about when I say waiting for permission is we tend to give our healthcare professionals or the people that we've entrusted with our fitness or well-being judicial powers over whether or not we have phantom or actual injuries or progress or perception. And the thing is that for all of the massive knowledge that a person may or may not have about you or your specific case or capabilities or whatever, no one knows you like you. And when I'm working with a client, and and quite frequently we'll be going through a corrective or something, and one of the primary things I communicate to the client is, okay, tell me if there's anything that feels like it shouldn't be present. I'll always communicate where the client should be feeling this corrective or that corrective. I'll always communicate form and function, but it's up to the client to let me know if there's anything that um, I'm not catching through a visual confirmation of the correctness of their particular form. Um, and I mean that could be for a variety of reasons. Like, I have I have one client who um, it took a long time for her to feel comfortable doing anything outside of this thick coat. She would always show up in this thick coat. First day I met with her, I was like, "Did you?" And she was like, "No, I'd rather keep this on." I'm like, "Okay, cool. It's whatever." But as a result of that, there are nuances that are present in a person's form that the more clothing they have on, I'm sorry, the more layers they have on, the more difficult it is to see. Something that would be very, very obvious in like even a fluffy, baggy T-shirt um, is not really obvious if someone's wearing like a fur-lined coat.
Yeah, I have similar issues with clients who wear pants,
Mm-hmm.
like workout pants that are baggy.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're doing like hip hinge movements or not squats aren't as bad, but like hip hinge especially, it's like, are you bending your knees in there, or are they
Mm-hmm.
just
Or
locked out?
right, or what's the variance of how that knee is sitting over
Yep.
your ankle or whatever, right?
Yep.
The more of these obstacles, of these confirmation obstacles that are present, the less capability a person has to be able to notice things preemptively.
Yep.
And couple that with I'm not allowed to feel something unless so and so says that I am. Like I'm doing some corrective exercise, or I'm doing part of an exercise program, and I might be feeling a twinge in a shoulder or a knee or a hip or whatever, and I don't mention it because my trainer, my coach, my doctor, my PT didn't say that I might be feeling that.
Hmm.
And so I'm waiting for permission for something to hurt bad enough for me to mention it, or for I'm waiting for permission for the reward to occur. So, for instance, like let's say that someone is performing a corrective, um, and they're not feeling they're not feeling any pain, but they're not feeling it in the target area,
Hmm.
uh, and they go silent. They mention nothing about it because they're waiting for permission to feel it in that space. Oh well, if I just the silent conversation is, if I just keep at this long enough,
Yeah.
I'll eventually feel it here or there.
The caveat of that too, right, is they probably can do a million of them in that position. Whereas if
Yes.
they were activating properly, they probably start getting cooked at about 10, 15 reps. But
Mm-hmm.
again, as you present, like they're not feeling anything detrimental necessarily. And
Yeah.
typically, because correctives, we try to use lighter bands or lighter resistances for several purposes, several reasons, right? They just keep on.
Mm-hmm.
rocking
So
and rolling.
so let's put this into like practical application terms.
Hmm.
Let's say, for instance, that you're doing a bicep curl and you're not fatiguing your biceps.
Hmm.
That can be, I mean, that can be one of many factors uh, that are lending to that. But like, let's say that all of those factors present, or any one of those factors present, but none of them present pain. If
Right.
you're not feeling your biceps when you're trying to do a curl, or you're not feeling it in the front of your arm,
Hmm.
and you're not experiencing any pain, typical conversation might be, "Well, I'm not feeling this in my biceps." Okay, are you feeling in your elbows or anything? No, I'm just not feeling in my biceps. Okay, sorry, the fix is, oh, we'll just keep at it, or let's add some weight, or
Hmm.
whatever, right? And then you add the weight, and then can't do the movement. So in between not feeling it and then not being able to do it, since this ambiguity starts to form, right? This cloud starts to settle over everything. Then you just wait. You wait for permission, right? And so
Hmm.
instead of investigating, for instance, I'm not feeling this in my biceps. Where I am feeling it is in my shoulders.
Hmm.
If you were to say this to your trainer, they might, if they're a really good trainer, they might suggest something like, okay, well, first let's do some investigation. Let's pull your elbows behind your rib cage and just do these curls like that, since it takes all the pressure off the anterior delt. And then we'll
Right.
do these curls this way, and then tell me what you feel. Don't they don't have the capacity to be able to offer that unless there's a lot of communication and you stop waiting for permission,
Yeah.
right? Feel a certain thing. Go ahead, John.
Well, no, I was just saying, like, one of my big head slaps is more of when there is pain. Like, we'll be doing squats, and I'm like, and then after the set, I might be, so, what were you feeling? Where were you feeling? I started feeling it in my knee. Like,
No,
no, no, like from day one, person, I've asked you if you feel it in any of the joints. Like red flags, danger, Will
right,
Robinson.
right.
But yes, very much so.
Uh-huh.
Or again, well, I'll even try to talk over, like, hey, did you feel it in your glutes, your quads, kind of throw out some things for them. And if I just whiff on all the areas they missed, it's just like, eh. But my low back was talking to me. Like the first rep, the last rep, in between. That was
Perfect.
kind of all of them. Son of a,
Right. So
just
so
wasted a set.
right. Okay. So let's explore that. Like let's stick a wedge in that and drive it way open.
Hmm.
So you're in the middle. So you're brand new, or you've been doing it for a long time, whatever. Right.
Hmm.
You go to start training an area. You get done with your set, and the whole time you're feeling a shoulder pop with every single movement. Right. It's not necessarily painful, but it's not painful,
Very
but
noisy.
you just hear it, it feels
Pop, pop, pop,
like
pop, 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 pop,
yeah,
pop.
like a pop, 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 right? With every single rep. You don't mention that to your trainer, um, because because since the trainer hasn't mentioned it. Oh, and if you feel a pop in the shoulder, make sure that you X, Y, or Z. Uh, the thing is that that might be a thing. That thing might be a thing that is specific to you, and so your trainer's not going to necessarily know that that's one of the possible outcomes, but might not know that that's a specific thing to you until you tell them that it's happening. Once you let them know, they may know 100 ways to fix it,
Yep.
and really refocus the movement for you specifically, and applying rules for you that may not exist for someone else.
So you just
But
described one of my clients so very
okay, let's
well,
hear it.
so very poignant. So he's an older gentleman, but working on his entire life, and he has I believe he was an MD at one point.
Hmm.
And no shade at MDs, but sometimes I've noticed that MDs probably don't know as much about the muscular skeletal system as you or I may
Hmm.
from our studies. Now, cardiologist knows a hell of a lot more about the heart and the
Well,
vein
yeah.
system than I ever will, and they probably know more about the nervous system and its neurological aspects than I ever will.
Hmm.
But this one gentleman is having him do bicep curls and lights. I had him using maybe fives or eights. He goes, oh, my shoulder just keeps, like, finally he started after me just pestering him, and every now and then he'd like complain about his shoulders hurting during bench presses and stuff like that. I'm like, are you feeling anything in your shoulder? Do you not hear that click? No, I don't. And so I'm like, I want you to try to hold your shoulders back, pull your shoulder blades together and try to hold them back, keep that chest lifted. And he's like, oh my God, so much harder. I was like, but is your shoulder clicking? I don't know. Just like, oh my God, my man. Like, and the next day he's like, you want me to go heavier? No, no.
Right?
Just can we?
Yeah. Can we make sure the issue is fixed before our first solution is to go heavier?
And then the
Uh,
other aspect that, I think this also is, we've talked about this before in private and with other clients as well. It's this like trying to get the foundation right, and sometimes, especially, I feel for, let's call them veteran worker outers, veteran athletes, if you will,
uh-huh.
that have been working out with a bevy of trainers, or they've just been training themselves their whole life. Like one of the biggest like gut shots for them, I feel, is going back to basics
Mm-hmm.
and trying to relearn. Either I feel it's either they feel they're too far in their journey, they don't think it matters, or they don't see the benefit in it, fit in it. Again, I had another client, he was complaining about something in his hips, and I was like, well, we could do a test for hip internal rotation versus external rotation, and we
Mm-hmm.
could see where he's like, I don't need that. I'm like, okay, guy, who every time his resting, he crosses his leg and the knee goes way outside of his hip line.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's his rest position, not just keeping his knees together. Anytime we have to put the knees together for any exercises, it is a struggle for him to keep his knees pressing together versus just letting those ankles cross and the knees be wide.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right, you don't need internal hip rotation check.
Right. And then when you go to do the movement, you're going to think that whatever you're experiencing there is completely normal,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
that isn't normal.
These pain signals, or it's not even pain signals necessarily. Was it I think it was Dr. Kelly Starrett, the Supple Leopard guy, in his
Mm-hmm.
book, that first book, Supple Leopard, he puts it in there, and I always steal the line, but it's like our body gives us these signals, and we may not know what the fuck it means. Like we may not be able to like write a dissertation on this feeling we're having, but by and large, like it's either going to be a good kind of a pop or it's going to be kind of a bad kind of a pop.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean that the wagon wheel is completely popped off. It could be that the wagon wheel just snapped into place and things are moving better.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's again, you keep feeling the same crunch, you keep feeling the same pop, or if it feels like it's a shredding thing, well, it probably is.
Right. Right. And no one is going to be able, no one can give you permission for that thing to be a problem. It
Yeah.
either is or it is not. Possibly address that until I know that it exists, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, if we liken it to, like when you go to the doctor, for instance, and the doctor says, okay, what's wrong, and you go, well, I'm achy, I have whatever going on, and they're like, oh, okay, and you describe all these symptoms, but you leave out that, like, you get nosebleeds 7 times a day, right?
Mm-hmm.
That could be a major indicator of something, right? That you but
Something very different than what you've already kind of led on to.
Right. I know 100 times it's happened, right, John? Like you have a client that's performing a movement, and on their first 2 reps, you're like, hey, wait, 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 are you feeling this in this spot? Oh yeah, and then oh yeah, am I not supposed to?
No.
Oh, you notice it, but again, like this person was waiting for permission for this thing to be a problem, and you can't do that. If it's there, it needs to get asked about.
To help a client's son from time to time, he'd join our workouts, and
Uh huh.
every time he would, this boy could. I mean, I'm sure he could probably pick up 400 or 500 pounds off the floor, cold deadlift.
Hmm.
He goes, man, I always feel it in my back. And I was like, well, guess what? You're always using your low back then.
Hmm.
And like when I'd have him do any type of low core exercises, he couldn't do them.
Yeah.
He lacked the ability to access his low core, or if he was able to, it was a motherfucker for him to be able to do the exercises to completion.
Hmm.
But he could pick up 500 pounds, so I'll just keep on trucking.
Right. I want to carry that over into other mindsets around fitness and mobility. If you if you went to a personal trainer or a physical therapist or a doctor or whoever and said, "I'd like to do X," and they said, "No, your reaction would be like, I don't need your permission to do that. I mean, fuck you, like it would
Hmm.
be just be incensed, to be enraged, like apply that same mindset to the things that you're experiencing when you're like, you don't need someone else's okay for this thing to be effectual.
Now,
Um,
someone with a growth mindset might ask why, but yes, I
right.
think a majority of people would have been all just like, well, fuck, I'll just go find someone else who will.
And it's okay to ask why. But again, not waiting for permission to either have knowledge or an experience,
Yep.
So it's it is a really important mindset to adopt, which is not waiting for someone else to tell you that pain or progress is okay.
Mhm.
Challenge yourself to discover what it is that might be holding you back or what it is that you're accomplishing. And you might find that you actually begin to develop an awareness of what the body is that you're inhabiting.
Hmm.
Otherwise, this, and I address this in one of the videos, that these mantras that the mobility industry, and that includes fitness, right? Like,
Hmm.
um, this thing about you get injured doing a program, or you get injured doing following some advice, and then you ask about it again. You waited, like, if you wait too long for the permission for something to hurt, then it's going to just manifest, and it's going to be impactful, right? Like, it's going to be
Yep.
impactful to everything, and you won't be able to do anything. So you go, so that occurs, and it occurs far too often. So you go to the person that gave you the advice of the program, and you say, uh, what do I do about this? And then you hear this, like, these popular mantras of oh man, you really need to honor your space, or oh, see, that's, you got to listen to your body. Like, what the fuck does that even mean? It's just a popular way of not dealing with the issue.
Yeah.
So before someone has the ability to send you away for something that is more serious than they can handle, address those small issues that many people can handle. They
Hmm.
just need to know about them.
Well, I mean, I've had similar issues in my own workouts, and I'm sure you have as well.
Hmm.
I mean, I remember when I first got into the fitness space, so to speak. Well, before I was in it, so that I had just quit my job, but I was suffering from a hip imbalance.
Hmm.
Like, let me tell you, that got my attention, but God knows how many cues that led up to that point. And when I said a hip imbalance, like it felt like an ice pick shoved into my left hip flexor
Hmm.
with every step I took. And it was painful. Like there was no other way. I was walking like an old man, almost dragging my leg around
Hmm.
because I was in a CrossFit class. Nothing, not saying it was CrossFit, but it was my technique and assuming someone was going to be watching me and telling me how to lift properly. But no one in that class was going to pull me off to the side and say, look, dude, you have no core engagement when you're squatting that 225, or you have no core engagement when you're deadlifting. You need to come over here and do some core exercises. Then come back in about 2 months and then let's work on this.
Hmm.
Right? That doesn't happen in classes. After I got into the fitness space and started working out and training myself, I remember with my right shoulder overhead pressing, crunch, 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 crunch,
Yeah.
crunch, 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 crunch. And it wasn't pain, but it was like, I don't think that sounds right. Like, no other joint in my body makes that kind of noise when I take it through ranges of motion, loaded or unloaded. So, and I started taking my time to do different correctives or different type of mobility exercises, and I had to go back to them, and then there was less crunching. So I was like,
Hmm.
so there's something there. There's something going on with that. This day, I was deadlifting about a week or two ago, and one side of my back was just like, I go, oh, well, before we do this next set, we're gonna do a little stretching, so to speak. Did a little supine twist. I mean, for me personally, I feel like I've got probably shortened lats or tighter lats than I probably need to have.
Hmm.
And so do a nice little stretch and twist out. Got all kinds of little good pops, like little adjustments, so to speak,
Yeah.
little self adjustments, so to speak. While I'm on the note, if you do pop your back, try not to crank your shit. all you're doing is creating laxity in your spine and not actually helping yourself in the long run. Your spine will get sloppy, so to speak. But
Yeah. So yeah, go into that range of motion. Give yourself some light resistance in the other direction.
yeah, but not the whole.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyhow, but got up and I haven't had a set of deadlifts that felt that good in a while, right? And but it was just helping, taking the time, the being in like the mindfulness of, oh wait, I know I could go on with this, and I know I could finish the next couple of sets, but I mean other things that this might be again the next level for people, but I noticed my grip strength was weakening.
Hmm.
Like I think the bar may have been 185 or so, which is I know not heavy for some and it's not light for
Hmm.
others. But for me, I felt like I should have had a stronger grip with it, and I was noticing I was just struggling for the life of me to hold on, and I had this tightness in my back. I was like, well, again, I got to do something, or else I can't do that.
Hmm.
And so it's just that again, taking the time to peel back and be again like you said mindful about taking actions towards resolution versus just trying to bullhead through it, because at the end of
Yeah.
it we will end up in some sort of surgery, or you will need some sort of major peel back to correctives, major peel back to rehabilitation work versus taking 30 seconds or a couple of minutes in between sets and fixing your own stuff.
Right. So the permission that you're waiting for, the longer you wait, the more downtime you have,
Yeah,
the more potential for downtime you have.
absolutely.
When I went into my first kickboxing class, and I don't mean like a cardio kickboxing, I mean like competitive kickboxing, right? So I was a kid, and uh, I'd been a martial artist for several years, right? So I was used to sparring and all that, but in a really controlled environment. And not that
Hmm.
kickboxing isn't a controlled environment, but it's a lot more free for all um, than like a point system kind of tournament, right?
Yeah.
So this guy this kid, this other kid is coming at me, and he's like swinging and all that stuff, and I'm blocking and moving and evading and all that, and I'm really nervous about it, right? And he keeps on, and like he's getting more and more aggressive. I'm not getting hit, but he's getting more aggressive, right? I mean, like it's hurting to block things,
Hmm.
and I'm not really returning the engagement. I look over at my instructor, and he's like looking at me, and his hands are on the mat, and he's like looking at me, and he goes, "What are you waiting for?" And I go, and I'm like ducking, and I'm like looking at him all nervous and jittery, and he goes, "Hit that motherfucker!" Like he said that, "Hit that motherfucker," and I was like,
Yeah.
was waiting for permission,
Yeah.
uh, waiting for permission to be active in my own life. You know, if you don't identify it, right, all you're doing is watering the seed of potential injury. Not to mention that if you stop waiting for permission for something, you'll quickly find how many things you actually do wait for permission for,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, and a lot of them centered around mobility. I was working with a client who said, finally, after a lot, almost like an inquisition, you know, like you're feeling here, you feeling here, watch this, and getting answers from no to I don't know to maybe. Finally, this person said, "Oh, you know what? Every time I do this, I actually do feel this. Like as soon as I get this movement back to here, I feel this like kind of pop." And so I said, "Yeah, okay. So here's what we're gonna do." Was able to make these recommendations around things
Hmm.
that then informed this limitation in overall mobility that this person had in their daily life, right? And I only been working with this person for 1 day, but as soon as we addressed this issue, um, then they came back to me and talked to me about like the next time they came, they said, you know what, I didn't realize after I had the conversation with you about my shoulder popping, I realized how often I have this rotation in my arm to reach back to reach behind me to do something. And as soon as you mentioned that, I started to do like this, and I noticed that I had less. less movement than I do it because this arm I can do it fine. This one I have to turn my arm
Hmm.
this way. And but we can't get at that at all until we know that it exists.
Yeah.
And we're able to know that it exists when you stop asking for permission for it to exist.
Yeah.
Uh, so that is the big takeaway. No one knows your body like you, and even the most attenuated and aware and knowledgeable person can't address everything. Uh, or I'm sorry, can't be intuitive about everything that's going on with your body.
Yep.
Uh, so stop waiting for permission.
Well, that
You,
also thinks makes me think of like, do some self exploration, right? Not, check your body, so to speak. It's nothing wrong with exploring, especially unloaded positions. Uh,
unloaded positions.
right. Like don't be grabbing 35-pound dumbbells and seeing if you can't do arm circles with them or something like.
Right. Hmm.
And then they snap their arm. But right, like go to a wall, put your shoulder on there, take your bicep to your ear, rotate that palm to the wall, and then you'll start noticing as you start getting that arm back how all of a sudden you're going to have to get away from the wall and start sliding that bad boy down and then feel that next natural rotation, wristwatch to the wall and coming back in. And then how does that feel on the other side?
Hmm.
For those who are barbell lifters, can you get a full grip of that bar and get yourself into a true front rack, or are those fingers going to peel back? Can you hold on to one, not the other? Are you one of these people? Right? Like all of these are little hints and clues to what's going on with your body. And if we are, again, what's your motivation for working out? And I get we all have different goals, but I feel that 80% of the people that are working out, maybe as high as 90% of the people that are working out, like they probably want to wipe their ass when they're 90. They probably want to be able to feed themselves when they're older.
See,
Maybe go
I would have chosen tie your shoes. I would have
tie,
chosen tie your
tie,
shoes. Yeah.
tie your
But
shoes is a good one too, but right?
yeah.
Like I feel that a majority of us just want to be able to outlive our bodies or want our bodies to outlive us, actually say that
Uh-huh.
correctly. Right? I think again that's for me is my goal. And I think for a lot of people they may say it differently. But what's the point of being able to pick up 415 pounds if you're going to shit your spine out? Or that, look at, I think it's a Ronnie Coleman right now.
Hmm.
Like he's having to go under the knife for some major, major stuff. And like, you know what? He lived a life of up here, and maybe it's worth it for him
Hmm.
to have been on that stage and to have been Mr. Olympia however many times. But there's going to be that scale. We always have that scale of balance, the yin and the yang of it, to get real philosophical.
I was trying to find this quote. When your last day comes, your body should be put to rest, beaten, not broken.
Yes.
Right. So,
Yes.
and that's a great one to live by. Right. Like,
It's okay to use it, but
right.
don't break it, bitch.
Right. There's no reward for putting your body to rest for on its final day, uh, scuff free.
Right.
Also, but there's plenty of rewards that are missed from being broken, right?
Mm-hmm.
And primarily, one of the primary ways we get broken is by waiting for permission to be broken. Uh,
Yeah.
because the cracks show before the break happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
So stop asking for permission.
Stay mindful as fuck, y'all.